It may not be the company's most popular SUV here in America. That honor goes to the midsize GLE. The Mercedes-Benz GLC competes in the most competitive segment in the luxury market here in the US, the compact luxury segment. That includes vehicles like the Audi Q5 and BMW X3. Mercedes updated its GLC SUV for the 2023 model year, and for this year in 2024, it is updated to the GLC Coupe, which is what I'm driving here today. The GLC Coupe features a very different roofline, but the same powertrains and interior technology. This one goes toe-to-toe with vehicles like the BMW M4, Audi Q5 Sportback, and the Infiniti QX55. I'm not always a big fan of SUV coupes like this one, but let's see if the 2024 Mercedes GLC 300 Coupe can win over my affection. So let's start off with the exterior, because this is really the biggest part that's different compared to a regular GLC. You can see a lot of similarities between this and the standard GLC here at the front. This one is going to come with a standard AMG line package in early 2024. I believe Mercedes has plans to build the GLC Coupe without that package, but at least for now, that's all you're going to be able to get, which is why our model comes equipped with it. We've got this really interesting grille with the giant Mercedes three-pointed star in the middle, but then as you can see, the grille itself is actually made from smaller three-pointed stars. I think that actually looks really good. I like the new headlights as well. I do like the kind of more aggressive front end of this model. I'm really digging this nice red color. I think it looks really good in red. 19-inch wheels is what's going to come standard on the GLC Coupe, but this one actually has a larger 20-inch wheel in these Eco Contact tires, kind of a weird name for a tire, and they do actually look kind of thick. They have like a nice sidewall for a 20-inch wheel, but those look good as well, and they have some nice cushy sidewall, so it doesn't hurt the ride too much. As you can see, we have our wheel arches in body color, so we don't have, kind of that plastic look that a lot of SUVs have. And here's where things are going to differ a lot from the standard GLC. Whereas the standard GLC kind of just ends and has like a flat back, this has the coupe look that BMW pretty much pioneered with the X6 more than 10 years ago, and we've seen vehicles like the GLC Coupe, the BMW X4, the Audi Q5 Sportback, the Infiniti QX55, the Porsche Cayenne Coupe. We've seen a ton of these come along since then, and this really follows that recipe. I'm not a big fan. I'm going to be 100% straight with you. I think that the regular GLC is so much better looking than this. I see what they were going for. They really wanted this kind of to look CLA-ish, kind of a little bit like their coupe models. You kind of have this kind of connected taillight bar look. The taillights aren't actually connected. This is kind of just a black piece, although it looks like it could be a taillight. It is not. The taillights are just strictly on the side. It is a really weird looking shape. I think people are either really going to love it or they're really going to hate it. I personally fall in the latter half of that. And then there are just so many weird details here. You just have kind of this weird spoiler that's not a spoiler. You've got these exhaust pipes down here that are not really exhaust pipes. You can see that the true exhaust pipes are actually here underneath the bumper. That's a big thing that Audi likes to do with their SUVs. In my personal opinion, I think the regular GLC is just a much better looking car, and as we'll get to later on, that is not the only area where this GLC Coupe loses over the standard GLC. So now we step here in the back, and I forgot to mention during the exterior walk around that this current GLC Coupe is about 1.2 inches longer than the outgoing GLC Coupe, so the legroom is a little bit up from that model. We don't have anything special back here, like no heated seats, no ventilated seats, nothing like that, no power seats. The seats don't even really lean back or adjust because, Mercedes wants to leave that to higher up end models on their lineup. Legroom is actually pretty decent. We've got a nice carve out here on the seats. We do at least have standard air vents, but I don't have any USB ports in here. Nothing crazy to charge up my devices with. I do have my cup holders in here. But again, I'm a little disappointed by how kind of barren this is, and the headroom is definitely lacking a little bit here. My head is touching the ceiling, and I am not really a super tall person, so that is something that you're going to lose over the standard GLC, which is going to have more headroom back here. And last but not least, before we get it out on the road, we'll go ahead and check out the trunk space. You actually open it by pushing the Mercedes-Benz star there on the trunk. You can see that the trunk is decently roomy. It's actually 1.6 cubic feet more than the old GLC Coupe. You get 19.2 cubic feet of space total. If you fold down the seats, you're going to get 52.6 cubic feet. That's a 3.1 cubic feet increase from the outgoing GLC, but you get a lot more trunk space in the regular GLC. The regular GLC has 21.9 cubic feet and then 56.3 when folded, so significantly more than what you're going to get here on the Coupe. That's because that roof line is just a little bit taller, giving you more space. I believe that the horizontal space is actually the same, so you're paying more on this GLC Coupe to get a vehicle that's a little bit more compromised. I do at least like that they put these little electric buttons right here. You just pull these tabs and you can drop down the rear seats. That's really easy and simple. And of course you have a power tailgate as well, but you could spend less and get more if you just get the regular GLC. And now that we finished doing our exterior walk around, let's go ahead and check out the interior of this GLC Coupe. Now, unfortunately, the configurator was not available as of this filming, so I'm not 100% sure like what options I'm missing here versus which ones are available, because we do have these kind of plain leather seats. They do feel kind of like a leatherette material to me. They don't quite feel like the nicest leather that Mercedes has available. Of course, this is not the most expensive vehicle that Mercedes has in its lineup. All black. I'd love some splash of color in here because the interior is quite dark. And we do only have heated seats here, not ventilated seats. When we get to the pricing, the lack of ventilated seats is going to seem a little bit silly. I believe that you can add those for just $750, but a lot of Mercedes press cars that I drive do not have them. For $750, if you live anywhere where it gets hot in the summer, that is definitely a worthwhile addition. So let's go ahead and start up the GLC Coupe. Go ahead and shut the door and turn off the radio. So all of this technology debuted in the standard GLC. We've got this very large, very nice 11.9 inch screen. It is very tall, very quick to use. You can use it via touch, or you can use the little touch pad here on the steering wheel. The other side is going to actually control the digital gauge cluster, which is 12.3 inches. This all comes standard, as does a Burmester 3D surround system here on this GLC Coupe. This is a pretty well-equipped car from Mercedes-Benz. I believe it has some things that the regular GLC doesn't have as standard, or at least are optional. We've got our stock up here for park, reverse, neutral, and drive. Put it into reverse, it's going to trigger an optional 360-degree camera. Really, really nice there. We've got some nice ambient lighting, although not the nicest that I've seen from Mercedes-Benz. These air vents don't light up. I believe they might as part of a package, but they do not as standard. One of the big problems that I have with this GLC Coupe, and it's the same problem on the regular GLC, is there's not a huge amount of storage. It all lives underneath here on this little lid. We've got this one cup holder that you can spin out of the way to get a little bit more space. We have a wireless charger, but it's all the way in here, making it a little bit difficult to access if you're trying to use your phone and wireless charge it. So I've been in SUVs that have much better integration of space than this, so that's a little bit disappointing. And because we have the Coupe body style and not the regular GLC, you can get this sunroof that Mercedes says is larger than what you used to get on the outgoing GLC, and it does open as well, but it is not a panoramic style. It's pretty impossible to have that with the way that the roof curves. So it is a really nice size roof, but it is not a panoramic unit. All right, so now let's get behind the wheel of the 2024 GLC 300 Coupe. And we're going to talk about how this car drives and what engines are going to be available. And we're starting off in this GLC 300. It's the only version of the Coupe model, I believe, that's on sale in the United States right now. There will be some crazy AMG models to follow, both of which will actually be 4 cylinders, just like this car. The GLC 43, I think, is making like 419 horsepower, and the GLC 63 is a plug-in hybrid that's going to have like 679 horsepower. Those are very different from this entry-level GLC 300 model, which has a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, producing 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. The big addition to the GLC this year from the previous generation GLC Coupe is the fact that this is now a mild hybrid. We've got a 23 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque boost from the mild hybrid system that also allows this vehicle to shut off the engine when you come to a stop, actually before you come to a stop. So theoretically, it's a little bit smoother, it's a little bit quieter. It only requires a boom, quick restart rather than the annoying firing of a gasoline engine. You know, sort of like you would get from a regular hybrid, but without the big battery that really helps the fuel economy a lot. This is just a very, very small battery to help with power, acceleration, and the stop-start like I had. Mercedes has been doing this on their 6-cylinder and V8 engines for quite a while now, but now it's starting to trickle to all of the 4-cylinder models, including this GLC and the C-Class, which I reviewed a couple months ago. And if you watched that review that I did of the C-Class, the C43 model, that's the middle AMG model, my biggest complaint was actually with the mild hybrid system. One of the problems with it was that you come to a stop, and right before you do so, the mild hybrid system deems, oh, I know this person is coming to a stop, so I'm going to shut off the engine early, which is fine. A lot of hybrids do this, and it's really not much of a problem. But as I come to a stop right now, it's going to bring it, so the engine stops, and I come to a full stop, and I get going. It doesn't reactivate that smoothly, not nearly as smoothly as I'd expect from a mild hybrid system, because these things are supposed to be like really great, really smooth. But the other thing that it does is it can sometimes get flummoxed when you're about to come to a stop and you time it wrong. It comes to a stop and then you give it some gas, and then it really doesn't know that that's what you wanted, and it seems really caught off guard that you were coming to a stop and then you wanted to accelerate. So I think the programming is just a little bit off on this, and this is something I did not notice when I drove some bigger Mercedes models with an inline 6 or with a V8 that had mild hybrid technology. They did not have this problem. It is only on the 4-cylinder mild hybrids that I have noticed this problem. So it's a little weird. If you're the type of person that hates stop start and you deactivate it, you're really not going to notice it. And then this powertrain is perfectly fine, but it is something a little weird that I've noticed with these 4-cylinder mild hybrid cars. Now, in terms of how this car puts down power, it does so pretty well. This is not like a sports car by any means, but if I go ahead and put the dynamic selector into sport, give it some gas, it does actually have launch control. Woo! It gets off the line pretty quick. Then it kind of slows down and tapers off from there. 0 to 60 takes about 5.7 seconds, and surprisingly, that number is actually a little bit slower than the outgoing GLC. This is the same problem that I encountered with the C43, which is now a 4-cylinder with a mild hybrid, whereas the old C43 was a V6. This is still a 4-cylinder, but it's actually more heavy because of that mild hybrid system. It's heavier than the GLC Coupe that it replaces. So the fuel economy, so the performance is actually slower than the outgoing one, despite having more power and more torque. So a little bit weird on that. We do have a 9-speed automatic transmission sending power out to all-wheel drive through Mercedes' 4MATIC all-wheel drive system. You cannot get the GLC Coupe with rear-wheel drive. You can get the regular GLC SUV with rear-wheel drive. This one only comes with 4MATIC, and it only comes with a sport suspension. I think it rides perfectly well. That is a big problem that I had with the C43, the AMG model, and that might be a problem with the GLC 43 when I drive that, the AMG model. But this one, even with, quote, sport suspension, I really don't think that this is uncomfortable. Europe does get an optional air suspension that we don't get. I'd actually really love that if this was just even more comfortable, but as of right now, I don't really think that this is uncomfortable, even with the larger 20-inch wheels. Now, I mentioned that the mild hybrid system really didn't have a great impact on performance because it's heavier. And honestly, on fuel economy, it's really not that great as well. The last model got 20 mpg in the city, 26 on the highway, and 22 combined. Really not great for a 4-cylinder. And this one is definitely better. You're going to get 24 mpg in the city, 30 on the highway, and 26 mpg combined. So about 4 mpg up from the outgoing GLC Coupe in fuel economy. Okay, so that's pretty good. But you're not going to do quite as well as the regular GLC. So it's funny that Mercedes kind of teases this and calls this the more aerodynamic car. It's the coupe, you know, it's got the curved roofline. But the regular GLC will get 24 mpg in the city. That's the same. 32 on the highway. That's 2 better. And 27 mpg combined. So that's 1 better in terms of combined. So if you want the best fuel economy, again, you want to get that regular GLC. All signs are really just kind of pointing to that regular GLC, unless you just really, really, really like the styling of this coupe model. Now, I will say the GLC is not the sportiest car in the world, but I really do like how this car drives. You've got, you know, your sport mode, which really does a nice job of holding the transmission, the 9-speed automatic gears a little bit longer. It sounds pretty decent too for a 4-cylinder. You know, usually it's really hard to make a 4-cylinder sound good. And because it has a mild hybrid system, even though it has a lot of gears to get through in sport mode, you put your foot down, it shifts gears really quickly, and there's a lot of torque there. There's not a lot of turbo lag because the mild hybrid system can spool the turbocharger a little bit faster, especially when you're kind of already up in the rev range in the right gear. The acceleration is pretty instant. Of course, if you want something quicker, you're going to have to wait for the GLC 43 or the GLC 63E performance that are coming out. But honestly, especially with a crossover like this, I don't think you're going to need the extra power. I think this is going to be good enough for 98, maybe even 99% of drivers. Just like I said with the C43, the fact that it still remains a 4-cylinder really doesn't make it feel that much more special like the old V6 models used to do. So I think this 4-cylinder is going to be plenty for most people. And although I don't love the GLC Coupe, I think that a regular GLC will be a really fine vehicle. And my biggest problem with it is the mild hybrid start system. I think the transmission tuning on this base 300 model is actually better than it was when it was like real clunky when I drove the C43. So if you just turn off the start-stop system, you should be absolutely fine with it. That is going to wrap up our time with the 2024 Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe. Pricing for the GLC Coupe starts at $57,000, although as I mentioned during the walk around, Mercedes is only selling this car with the AMG line package, so that's going to bring the price up to $59,850. So you're looking at just under 60 grand for one of these before you start even adding any options. Now, Mercedes has streamlined the process. There's really not that many things that you can add to this. There's a Pinnacle package, there's some colors and stuff like that, bigger wheels, but there's really not a ton that you can do to add up the price. Unfortunately, I don't actually have the sticker price of this one. As I mentioned, the configurator was not available prior to the filming of this video, so be sure to go online and see what options are available, which ones are extra, and decide whether or not this is something that you would be interested in. I'm really telling you that the regular GLC is the one that I would pick. You really, really, really have to love the styling at the back of this GLC Coupe, because you can get a regular GLC 4MATIC. Remember that 4MATIC is not standard on the regular GLC. You can get one of those for just over $49,000. So there is about an $8,000 premium to step up to this coupe model. And what are you really getting? Styling, less space, and not much else. You're really just getting that coupe body style that I don't think is as good looking, and you're paying a lot more for it. How does it stack up against the competition? I mean, I think it's a lot newer feeling than an Audi Q5 Sportback, at least on the inside, and it is a little bit more powerful, I believe, as well, at least on the torque side of things. The BMW X4 is really nice, but I believe that model is going away soon. So this does compete in that space, but that mild hybrid system is not as refined as I would expect from Mercedes-Benz. Some of the technology is good, but there were a lot of missing features on this model that I know you can get for less money in some of the competition. So I'm not sure if this GLC Coupe is the strongest offering from Mercedes-Benz, and that might be why that this car is not the company's best seller, despite it being in the most popular segment here in America, and why the GLE is actually the company's best seller. Anyway, let me know what you think of the 2024 Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe. Do you actually like it better than the standard GLC? I really want to hear from you if that's the case, or even if that's not the case. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos, and I'll see you next time.